friends, welcome back to Flights of Fancy. I'm Sarah, and today we're doing our intro from the top of Mount Constitution on Orcas Island. And they've got this amazing medieval tower and this amazing view of the Sound. This is one of the most phenomenal spots I've ever seen, and it's just a ferry ride away from my house. We're here camping for the weekend, so I thought I'd squeeze in an intro. Today we'll be doing another arts and craft project, but as usual, I'm not sure what we're doing yet.
We're doing stuff.
Yeah. So greetings from the top of Mount Constitution. Enjoy the video, and we'll catch you next time. As you know, pumpkins have very tough outer skin. They're actually very tough in general, so I made sure to sharpen my knife first because I don't want to slip and have an accident. Keep your fingers well away from your sharp knife going through even a homegrown pumpkin. And oh, well, that was kind of an awkward last slice there. Okay, I'm going to keep all the seeds from my pumpkin to bake into a snack later. It's really yummy to have crunchy pumpkin seeds for a snack. I'll show you in this video later how I prepare it. Actually got 3 products out of this pumpkin. Oh, and that is the super cheap pumpkin carving spoon that you get in like a pumpkin carving kit, and it works super well when you're baking any kind of pumpkin or squash to eat too. They're just surprisingly phenomenal cheap little tools. Okay, now I'm cutting the pumpkin up a little bit smaller to fit in my Instapot. And it took me 3 or 4 batches to cook them all up in the Instapot, but that's okay because it's super fast. It's instant. Here are some cooked ones already, and I have to scoop the meat out from the skin that's really hot. Ouch, it's hot. Ouch, ouch. And because of it's steaming in water in the pressure cooker, it soaks up a lot of moisture. Unlike when you bake in the oven, it kind of is a little bit dry. So I'm going to try to, oh, it's my son's hand. He's hepping. I'm going to try to strain out a lot of the pumpkin water from the pumpkin meat. Oh, I tried to dry the seeds with a paper towel, but they all stuck to the paper towel. That was a bad idea. I'll just leave them a little moist, it's fine. I'm adding a little garlic chili infused oil from a fancy store I got in Leavenworth. And some sea salt, yum, or any kind of salt you like, or no salt, whatever you want. Just oil so that it crisps up nice and crunchy. And it's a bunch of seasonings. Here I'm using some no salt seasoning. I'm using salt and no salt seasoning. But I really like all the things that go into the no salt seasonings. Garlic and peppers and yummy things. And I need a little more spices. Get everything all nice and mixed in there. Mix. And pour it out onto a baking sheet. And I cook this in the oven at 350 for 5-minute increments, maybe like do 10 minutes and then check it every 5 minutes until they're really crunchy. You want them like not quite burnt. They're like super crunchy, so you could just pop them in your mouth and eat them shell and all. And they're just tender little seeds, so you can totally eat the shell as long as they're nice and crispy, and whichever oil you choose to cook them with will help that crispiness. Alright, here's some more cooked pumpkin straight from the Instapot, and here I am straining it like I was talking about. Just scoop and unscoop. Alright, speed this up. There's so much pumpkin to get through. And I think, as I mentioned, I grew these pumpkins myself in my own little garden, and pumpkins take up kind of a lot of garden space, but it's so worth it if you can have a little space to cook to grow your own pumpkins. They're pretty easy. I've been doing them for years now, maybe 5. I started making pumpkin pies with my mom as a kid, and we'd use canned, and then I started getting sugar pumpkins. This is a sugar pumpkin. It's a variety of pumpkin from the fruit stand, but the fruit stand closes in October, and I need it for Thanksgiving, so then I would buy them early and keep them. And sometimes I would forget and I'd have to make pumpkin pie with sugar, or wait, no, what's that little squash? Acorn squash pie. But it comes out great. You can use acorn squashes. Oh, yeah, I should have used a funnel. Oops. Well, anyway, after that I started growing them myself, and it's completely worth it. But if there's no place to get sugar pumpkins, you can buy them from the store or use any kind of squash. And here I mix them up with a stand mixer, or one of those mixers called. And I could have mixed a little bit more, but it was really, really noisy and the baby was sleeping. Here's the consistency and color. Yum, yum, yum. And I did this days ahead of time. Do this 3 or 4 days ahead of time. Oh, here are the seeds all out of the oven. Yum, yum, yum. They're so good and crunchy and delicious with all the spices. Now I'm presetting the oven for making the crust. So what you do is you do the pumpkin puree 3 or 4 days ahead of time, and then the next day you do the crust, and then the next day you do the pie. And you can do the pie the day before Thanksgiving, or you could do the pie the day of Thanksgiving. Just think about how much time you have for what thing. Maybe I have my family members all make a different dish at home or in my kitchen, so I don't have to do every single dish. Oh, of course, do the cookies in a food processor, but my food processor is really, really tiny. It wouldn't hardly fit much more than what fits in this mortar and pestle here, and so I'm just using the mortar and pestle because I can. And it's really easy to clean. It's really heavy, but it's so easy to clean. And the food processor has all these components. You've got to wash them all, and not necessarily by hand. They can go in the dishwasher, but it wasn't hardly any harder to use the mortar and pestle. Plus, it's really cool. And yes, I'm making the crust from scratch by hand out of cookies. The crust is made out of cookies. You get these really crispity cookies, and I used a ginger cookie from Trader Joe's like I showed you here earlier. Mix it up with butter. I'm going to post all of the recipes that I used in the description so you can get the exact measurements. Of course, the crust is not very exact. You just get it all moistened like this. You can see in my hand it has to kind of sort of stick together. Here's my funky crab pie plate. And you press it all in there real nice and firm. I'm using the spatula to just spread it out, and then my fingers to do the finishing touches. And as I'm spreading this out, I'm realizing it's a little thin. I don't think this is quite a thick enough crust. Yeah, it's too thin. I need more. More crust! Gotta cut up some more butters and melt it in the microwave and process some more cookies. Get through all these cookies. Okay, good consistency there. And then you spread it around like I was saying, and then once you get the it's spread up the sides and evenly along the bottom, you press it really firm with just like something that has a flat bottom. I use the measuring cup, in this case, and my fingers around the edge. And I don't know if it was the ceramic pie plate or the super thick crust, but I had to cook it for much longer. The pie filling that's coming later, I had to cook it for much longer than the recipe said. And it kind of started crisping, almost burning the edges of the crust. And I have a pie crust saver. It's like just like a metal donut thingy you put over the pie, and it keeps the crust from burning. And I forgot I had it and I didn't use it. So my crust came out a little crispy around the edges. And it was kind of hard to pry out of the pie plate. So keep that in mind with whatever pie plate you use. Just the regular glass ones are probably a better idea. Okay, now I'm finally mixing up the filling, the main star of the pumpkin pie. So we have sugar, and then you want to whisk the sugar into the egg like this. And this is whisking. You just tilt your bowl and you twirl the whisk. Here's some slow-mo. And you want to like really beat some air into the egg until it is a little like frothy. I'm gonna stop, look at the consistency. I think the color should become a little lighter than it started with. And here I'm adding the cinnamon. And oh, that's okay. I love a spicy pie. I was gonna add that much anyways. And my other spices, what is this one? Ginger and all these other spices. Well, we'll have them in the descriptions, but I just eyeballed them all because I add a little bit more than the recipe calls for anyways. A little salt, mix it all up together, and oh, coffee time. And the pumpkin puree, yum, 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 yum. Scoop all that in there. And this pumpkin puree is so delicious just by itself. You could just eat it for a snack. I mean, you can make all kinds of other recipes. With my leftover, I'm gonna make like a cake. Oh, you can make cake too. You can make a cake or bread. I might make bread. It's like banana bread, but with pumpkin puree. Alrighty, now put that in the oven. And yeah, here you can see my crust is a little dark, but that's okay. Oh, so to decorate it, this is optional. I decided to sprinkle on some of this caramel. I had some caramel chunks and I melted them in the microwave, which probably wasn't the best thing for it. It's not quite as stringy as I was hoping it would be, but the funny thing is, I put this in the refrigerator until the day of, and it melted. It melted right into the pie. Like it wasn't even there anymore. So, I mean, it tasted great though. And here I'm kind of decorating the edges, covering up my burnt crust with the leftover cookie bits. Subscribe!
Did you get it?